It was just another morning in a medieval village. The sun rose slowly over the thatched roofs of small wooden houses, casting long shadows across narrow dirt streets. Smoke drifted lazily from chimneys, carrying the scent of burning wood and freshly baked bread. Outside, people began their daily routines, often harsh and tiring by modern standards, yet completely normal for them. Life in medieval times was not luxurious. Comfort as we know it was a rare and fleeting thing. Most people lived in small homes, often just one or two rooms. The floors were dirt or simple wooden planks, and furniture was minimal. A table, some stools, perhaps a wooden chest. Windows, if they existed at all, were small, covered with oiled cloth or wooden shutters. Heat was provided by a central hearth, which was also used for cooking. Imagine waking up in such a house. The mornings were chilly, especially in winter, and there was no central heating. People wrapped themselves in layers of wool and linen. Water for washing had to be heated over the fire. There were no modern conveniences, no hot showers, no toothpaste, no indoor plumbing. Hygiene was rudimentary and diseases were common. A simple cut could become life-threatening due to infection. People's daily lives were filled with work. Most villagers were farmers, spending long hours in the fields. They plowed the soil with oxen, planted seeds, tended to crops, and harvested them. Farming relied heavily on the seasons and the weather. A single bad season could mean famine, and work didn't stop with planting or harvesting. Animals needed to be fed, fences repaired, and tools maintained. Children often worked alongside their parents from a very young age. Education, as we think of it today, was rare. Only a few privileged children might learn to read and write, usually at a monastery or in the household of a wealthy family. Most children learned practical skills, farming, cooking, and crafts. Playtime existed, but it was limited and often combined with chores. The food was simple and sometimes scarce. Bread, porridge, and vegetables made up the staple diet. Meat was a luxury for most people, often reserved for festivals or special occasions. Preservation of food was a challenge. Without refrigeration, people relied on salting, smoking, and drying to keep meat from spoiling. Dairy products like cheese and butter were common, but also depended on the seasons and availability of livestock. Sanitation was a constant struggle. Waste was often thrown into the street or into simple cesspits. Clean water was hard to come by, and contaminated water was a major source of illness. Diseases such as dysentery, cholera, and typhoid were common and deadly. Epidemics could sweep through villages, killing many in a short time. Clothing, though practical, was another challenge. Wool and linen were common materials. Clothes were homemade, often coarse and uncomfortable. Dyeing fabric was difficult, so colors were muted and simple. The wealthy could afford finer fabrics and more elaborate garments, but for most, clothing was functional above all. Travel was slow and dangerous. Roads were unpaved and often muddy or rutted. Travel by horse or cart was the main option, and even then, journeys could take days or weeks. Bandits and wild animals posed threats, and inns were few and far between. Most people rarely traveled far from their village, living and dying in the same area they were born. Medical care was minimal and primitive. Illnesses that are easily treated today could be fatal. Doctors relied on herbs, bloodletting, and superstitions. Surgery was rudimentary and painful, performed without anesthesia. Plagues, like the Black Death, wiped out huge portions of the population. Life expectancy was low. Reaching the age of 40 was considered fortunate. Religion played a central role in daily life. The church influenced almost every aspect of society, from laws to education. People attended mass regularly, and religious festivals marked the calendar. Superstitions and beliefs in magic or spirits were common, guiding decisions and behavior. Conflict was never far away. Feuds, raids, and wars disrupted life. Even in peaceful villages, the threat of violence loomed. Soldiers were often conscripted, and local lords held power over their lands with strict authority. Punishments for crimes were harsh, sometimes brutal. Entertainment existed but was modest. Storytelling, songs, and simple games were common. Festivals and fairs provided rare moments of celebration, but for most, life was about survival and work. Leisure was a luxury few could afford. Now imagine you're a visitor from the future, suddenly placed in a medieval village. The smells, sights, and sounds would be overwhelming. Dirt streets, smoky air, the constant noise of animals and labor, and the sight of people working tirelessly from dawn to dusk. It would be exhausting. The food would seem bland and unappealing after modern flavors. Bathing rarely, washing in cold water, and wearing coarse clothing would feel unbearable. The cold would bite harder in winter. Without modern insulation, houses were drafty and heating was limited to the fireplace. Snow could block paths, and frostbite was a real threat. A short walk outside might feel like a test of endurance. Illness and injury were constant dangers. A small cut could fester into something deadly. Contagious diseases spread quickly, and without vaccines or effective medicine, survival was uncertain. Even a mild fever could be life-threatening. Work was relentless. From sunrise to sunset, people labored in fields, homes, and workshops. Weekends or breaks were rare. Fatigue was a constant companion, and injuries were frequent. The idea of retirement or leisure time was practically unknown. Social hierarchy was strict. Peasants, serfs, and commoners had little say in their lives. They were bound to the land, owing labor and taxes to their lords. Freedom was limited, and mobility was rare. Life choices were constrained by birth and circumstance. Even entertainment, when available, had its own hardships. Hunting, jousting, and tournaments were mostly for the wealthy. For common people, fun came in the form of simple games, music, and storytelling. But even these were interrupted by work and survival needs. Hygiene was infrequent. Baths were infrequent, sometimes only once a month or less. Teeth were rarely cleaned, and lice, fleas, and other pests were common. Skin infections, rashes, and infestations were normal parts of life. Modern cleanliness would have seemed impossible to maintain. Mental health was affected too. Stress, fear of disease, hunger, and constant labor created a heavy burden. People were accustomed to hardship, but the psychological toll was significant. Superstitions and religion often offered comfort, but fear and uncertainty were ever present. Seasonal changes dictated life. Winters were harsh and long, food became scarce, and survival required planning and hard work. Spring and summer brought relief, but also new labor and risks like floods, storms, or crop failures. Every season demanded adaptation and resilience. Education was a privilege, not a right. Most learning was practical: farming, craft, cooking, and household skills. Reading, writing, and higher knowledge were limited to the wealthy or religious institutions. Literacy rates were low, and knowledge transfer relied heavily on oral traditions. Now consider childbirth and family life. Giving birth was dangerous. Midwives helped, but complications often led to death for mother or child. Infant mortality was high. Families were large, partly because survival of children was uncertain. Raising a child was a constant challenge, filled with worry over health, food, and protection. Animals were both companions and tools. Livestock provided food, labor, and clothing materials. Horses, oxen, and donkeys worked in the fields, while chickens, pigs, and cows supplied eggs, meat, and milk. Caring for animals was daily work, and their loss could be devastating. Buildings and homes were simple, often shared with animals in winter. A single room might house people and livestock, making life crowded and unhygienic. Fire was a constant threat. Accidental fires could destroy homes and entire villages. Communication was slow. News traveled by word of mouth, horseback, or messenger. There were no telephones, internet, or newspapers. People knew only what happened locally or what travelers brought. Information was delayed, unreliable, and sometimes distorted. Law and order was strict but uneven. Local lords enforced rules, sometimes harshly. Punishments included fines, floggings, imprisonment, or worse. Justice was often arbitrary, and rights for common people were limited. Fear of authority was a part of daily life. Imagine modern conveniences missing. No electricity, no refrigeration, no modern medicine, no transportation networks, no instant communication. Every aspect of life required effort, patience, and endurance. Even simple tasks today, cooking, cleaning, traveling, communicating, were major undertakings. Now picture an average day in a medieval village. You wake up at dawn, work in the fields or home, tend to animals, prepare meals, fetch water, repair your house, and repeat. Evening brings dim candlelight, simple meals, and exhaustion. Sleep comes early, but rest is never complete, as dawn brings another day of hard labor. Even leisure, when possible, is modest. Singing, storytelling, or occasional. Imagine a grand medieval castle sitting atop a hill, overlooking a quiet valley. Its stone walls are thick and towers rise high into the sky. From the outside, it seems impressive and majestic, but inside, life is anything but comfortable by modern standards. The castle is cold, drafty, and filled with the constant smell of smoke, animals, and human activity. Castles were built for defense rather than comfort. Thick walls, narrow windows, and heavy doors kept invaders out, but they also made daily life harsh for the inhabitants. Heat was provided by large hearths, but only the main hall and a few select rooms were warm. Most chambers were cold, dark, and damp. Stone floors were hard, and furniture was minimal. Beds were often simple wooden frames with straw mattresses covered with rough blankets. Life in a castle revolved around work, hierarchy, and routine. The lord or lady of the castle had responsibilities, but so did everyone else, from knights to servants. Each person had a role, and daily routines were strictly organized. The day often began before sunrise, with tasks that ranged from cooking and cleaning to tending animals and maintaining the building. Food was central to castle life, but it was also a challenge. Meals were cooked over large fires, often in separate kitchens. Preservation of food was critical. Meat had to be salted or smoked, vegetables stored in cool cellars, and bread baked regularly. Water was drawn from wells, and sanitation was limited. The smell of cooking mingled with waste, animals, and damp stone, creating an environment that could be overwhelming. Servants carried out much of the labor in the castle. They cleaned, cooked, carried water, and maintained the structure. Work was exhausting, and their lives were long hours of repetitive tasks. There was little recognition or reward, and the conditions were often harsh. Knights trained and exercised, maintaining their weapons and armor. They practiced combat, rode horses, and participated in tournaments. For them, life was rigorous, disciplined, and dangerous. Injuries were common, and medical care was minimal. A simple wound could become infected, and recovery was uncertain. Children in the castle had different experiences depending on their status. Noble children might receive education in reading, writing, and etiquette. They learned to manage households, participate in courtly life, and handle weapons. Common children often worked as servants or apprentices, learning practical skills for survival. Play was rare, and childhood responsibilities came early. Clothing in the castle was a marker of status. Nobles wore fine fabrics decorated with embroidery and furs. Servants and workers wore simple, coarse garments made from wool or linen. Clothes were handmade, and fashion was dictated by social position and wealth. Washing was infrequent, and clothing often carried the scent of smoke and labor. Sanitation was one of the greatest challenges. Waste was disposed of in pits or thrown into rivers. Chamber pots were used indoors but emptied infrequently. Bathing was rare, and hygiene standards were low. The combination of cold, damp, and filth contributed to the spread of disease. Illnesses could move quickly through the castle, affecting all ranks. The castle was a hub of activity. Markets, fairs, and festivals might take place nearby, bringing people together. But inside, life was regimented. Meals were eaten at set times, prayers observed, and work performed according to hierarchy. Lords and ladies were attended by servants who ensured their comfort, though even the nobility experienced cold, hunger, and discomfort. Security was constant. Guards patrolled the walls, watched the gates, and kept watch for intruders. The threat of attack was real, and sieges could last weeks or months. Food and water had to be stored in advance, and defensive structures maintained. The stress of potential danger was ever present. Medical care remained primitive. Healers used herbs, poultices, and rudimentary surgery. Pain was common, and infections were deadly. Even minor injuries could threaten life, and disease outbreaks could decimate the population. Mental stress was compounded by fear of injury, illness, or attack. Religion played a central role in daily routines. Chapels within the castle were used for prayer and worship. Festivals marked the calendar, and clergy provided guidance, support, and education. Superstition and faith influenced decisions from food preparation to health care. Travel from the castle was difficult. Roads were rough, travel slow, and the risk of robbery or attack high. Most people remained within the castle's grounds or immediate lands. Long-distance communication was rare, and news traveled slowly. Messages took days or weeks to reach distant places. Entertainment was limited. Nobles might enjoy music, poetry, or tournaments. Servants found amusement in simple games, storytelling, or communal gatherings. Festivals offered relief from routine, but life in the castle remained dominated by labor and duty. Weather had a profound effect on castle life. Rain, snow, and wind penetrated thick walls, making interiors cold and damp. Fireplaces provided warmth, but smoke often filled rooms. Storms could damage structures, disrupt food supplies, and create hardships for everyone inside. Now, imagine waking up in such a castle. Your room is cold, the stone floor hard beneath you. Light comes through small windows, barely illuminating the space. You wrap yourself in rough blankets, aware that warmth is limited. Outside, work begins, and the day stretches long ahead. Daily routines were strict. Servants cleaned, fetched water, and prepared meals. Knights trained and maintained weapons. Nobles conducted affairs, managed lands, servants and attended to guests. Everyone moved according to the rhythm of work, prayer, and obligation. Free time was rare, and rest came only at the end of a long day. Meals were repetitive and simple. Bread, cheese, vegetables, and occasionally meat made up most dishes. Spices were rare and expensive, so flavor was modest. Hygiene during meals was minimal, and hand washing was limited. Food safety was uncertain, and spoilage common. Illness remained a constant threat. The damp stone, cold air, and crowded conditions facilitated the spread of disease. Simple injuries could worsen, and recovery was slow. Without modern medicine, health crises were frightening and frequent. Children experienced early responsibility. Servants worked hard, learning essential skills for survival. Noble children were educated, but even they faced duties and expectations. Play was rare, and childhood responsibilities came early. Hygiene remained a struggle. Bathing was infrequent, and clothing rarely washed. Lice, fleas, and other pests were normal. Smells, dirt, and discomfort were unavoidable companions. Modern standards of cleanliness were unimaginable. Now, consider the challenges of castle construction and maintenance. Stone walls required laborious work, mortar mixing and hauling heavy materials. Roofs needed repair, wooden doors had to be maintained, and fires kept alive for cooking and warmth. Work was constant and exhausting. Animals were housed in or near the castle. Horses, cows, and pigs needed feeding and care. Animals were essential for food, labor, and transportation. Their presence added noise, smells, and extra work for the inhabitants. Security required vigilance. Guards patrolled walls, gates, and courtyards. Weapons were maintained and defenses inspected regularly. Even a single breach could be disastrous. Life inside a castle involved constant awareness of threats. Now, picture modern conveniences absent. No electricity, plumbing, central heating, or refrigeration. Food preparation, cleaning, and travel required effort. Every task consumed time and energy. Daily life demanded physical endurance and resilience. Despite hardships, people adapted. Routine, community, and hierarchy structured life. Work was relentless, but it provided purpose and sustenance. Festivals, music, and storytelling offered rare but valuable relief. The castle was also a place of learning and culture for some. Noble children learned etiquette, languages, and arts. Skilled workers mastered crafts, contributing to the maintenance and functioning of the castle. Knowledge was practical, survival-focused, and hierarchical. Mental health was challenged by isolation, labor, and risk. Fear of disease, injury, or attack was constant. Religion and superstition offered solace, guidance, and explanation for misfortune. Hope and resilience were essential for endurance. Seasonal changes shaped life. Winter brought cold, limited food, and increased labor. Summer offered relative ease, but also challenges like storms, floods, and disease. Villagers and castle inhabitants alike relied on adaptation to survive. Childbirth remained dangerous. Midwives assisted. Imagine a small village in medieval Europe. The morning fog hangs low over thatched roofs, covering narrow dirt streets and scattered cottages. Smoke rises from chimneys, mixing with the scent of wet earth, wood fires, and livestock. Life here is simple but demanding, with every day defined by labor, survival, and the slow rhythm of nature. Most villagers are peasants.
They live close to the land, working it from dawn to dusk. Homes are small, made of wood or wattle and daub, with thatched roofs. Inside, space is limited. Often a single room serves as kitchen, living space, and sleeping area. Furniture is minimal, a wooden table, stools, and perhaps a chest. Floors are dirt or rough planks. Comfort is rare, warmth scarce, and privacy almost non-existent. Daily life begins early. The rooster's crow signals the start of the day. Villagers rise before sunrise, dress in coarse wool or linen, and begin their work. Men head to the fields, plowing, planting, weeding, or harvesting crops depending on the season. Women tend gardens, care for animals, cook meals, and maintain the household. Children often work alongside adults, learning skills essential for survival. Work is relentless and tied to the seasons. Spring brings planting, summer demands maintenance and protection of crops. Autumn is for harvesting, and winter requires preparation for scarcity. Failure at any stage could result in hunger, or worse, famine. Villagers depend on the land, and the land can be unpredictable. Food is basic. Bread, porridge, legumes, and seasonal vegetables form most meals. Meat is rare, often reserved for festivals or special occasions. Dairy products like cheese and butter are common, but only when livestock produce abundantly. Preservation of food is crucial. Meat and dairy are salted, smoked, or fermented to last longer. Hunger is a constant possibility, and meals are humble and repetitive. Hygiene is minimal. Water must be drawn from wells, rivers, or communal sources. Baths are infrequent. Soap is rare and expensive. Villagers live close to animals, and dirt, lice, and fleas are everyday companions. Disease spreads easily, and epidemics can wipe out large numbers. Simple cuts or infections could be fatal. Education is limited. Only the children of wealthier families might learn to read and write. Most children learn practical skills, farming, animal husbandry, cooking, and craft work. Storytelling and oral traditions preserve history and culture. Knowledge is practical, survival-oriented, and passed down from generation to generation. The social structure is rigid. Villagers are often serfs, bound to the land they cultivate. They owe labor, taxes, or produce to the local lord. Freedom is limited and social mobility rare. Lords and clergy hold power over villagers' lives, enforcing rules, collecting dues, and arbitrating disputes. Life is dictated by hierarchy, obligation, and survival. Clothing is functional, not decorative. Wool and linen are common materials. Garments are homemade, rough, and designed to last. Dyeing is difficult, so colors are muted. Winter layers provide warmth, while summer garments are light but coarse. Clothing must endure labor, dirt, and weather. The village is alive with daily sounds. Chickens cluck, pigs grunt, oxen strain against plows, and dogs bark. People call to one another, coordinate work, or exchange news. Noise is constant, but it is the rhythm of daily life. Silence is rare, and rest is found only in the quiet moments before dawn or after sunset. Weather dictates much of life. Rain can turn fields to mud, storms can destroy crops, and frost can kill plants overnight. Winter is harsh, bringing cold, scarcity, and extra labor to store food and fuel. Villagers adapt to these conditions, but challenges are constant. Modern comfort is non-existent, and survival depends on preparation, resilience, and endurance. Religion permeates village life. The local church is central to community, guiding morals, behavior, and festivals. Religious observances structure the year. Superstitions, folklore, and belief in spirits influence daily decisions, from planting crops to caring for the sick. Faith is both comfort and control, providing explanation for misfortune and hope for the future. Childbirth is dangerous. Midwives assist, but complications often result in death for mother or child. Infant mortality is high. Families are large to ensure some children survive to adulthood. Raising children is demanding, requiring constant attention, food, and protection. Every child is a potential contributor to labor and survival. Work does not stop at the fields. Villagers repair homes, mend tools, gather firewood, and care for animals. Livestock, cows, pigs, sheep, chickens, provide milk, meat, wool, and eggs, essential for nutrition and clothing. Feeding, cleaning, and protecting animals is daily labor. Loss of livestock can mean disaster. Medical care is rudimentary. Herbal remedies, poultices, and prayers are the main treatments. Surgery, when attempted, is painful and dangerous. Diseases, infections, and injuries threaten survival. Simple ailments can become fatal. Mental stress is high, but faith and community provide some solace. Travel is limited and risky. Roads are poor or non-existent. Travel by foot or cart is slow and exhausting. Bandits, wild animals, and poor weather are threats. Most villagers never travel far from their homes. Communication is slow. News arrives via travelers, messengers, or word of mouth. Isolation is common. The village thrives on cooperation. Work is shared, knowledge exchanged, and festivals celebrated together. Community support is essential. During harvest, famine, or epidemics, villagers rely on each other for survival. Neighborly relations can mean the difference between life and death. Entertainment is simple. Storytelling, songs, seasonal festivals, and communal games provide respite from labor. Dancing, music, and feasts are rare highlights. Life is mostly work, but small joys sustain morale. Even these entertainments are modest, short-lived, and intertwined with daily survival. Safety is never guaranteed. Conflicts, theft, and raids are threats. Local lords may impose punishment harshly. Villagers must navigate risks carefully, adhering to rules, respecting authority, and avoiding danger whenever possible. Fear is a constant companion. Sleep is necessary, but often brief. Long hours of labor, worry, and poor nutrition affect rest. Cold, noise, and shared sleeping spaces make sleep less restorative. Night offers little reprieve. Vigilance may be required against animals, thieves, or other dangers. Holidays and festivals provide a glimpse of relief. Religious holidays mark the year with feasts, ceremonies, and communal gatherings. These occasions are bright spots in otherwise repetitive, demanding life. People celebrate with food, music, and dance, though scarcity and duty limit indulgence. Food scarcity is a constant concern. Crop failure, weather events, and disease can lead to hunger or famine. Storage methods are limited. Root vellers, dried foods, and preserved meats help, but nothing is certain. Daily life includes careful planning to ensure enough sustenance. Hygiene remains challenging. Bathing is rare. Clothing is seldom cleaned. Human and animal waste is a constant presence. Lice, fleas, and infections are everyday experiences. Health risks are high, and adaptation to discomfort is essential. Mental stress is constant. Fear of illness, injury, starvation, and authority is real. Stress is mitigated by faith, routine, and community. People endure hardships with resilience, relying on knowledge, skills, and cooperation. Now imagine waking up in such a world. The cold bites. Dirt floors, rough clothing, and simple tools greet you. The tasks ahead are many. Feed animals, tend fields, repair homes, gather water, cook meals. Every action demands physical effort. Every day is a test of endurance. Yet life continues. People work, talk, pray, eat.
Imagine walking into a medieval town in Europe. Narrow, winding streets lined with half-timbered houses. The smell of smoke, livestock, and open sewers fills the air. The town is alive with noise, merchants calling out their wares, children running through alleys, carts creaking over cobblestone streets. Life here is busy, loud, and often unpleasant by modern standards. Most towns are small but densely populated. Homes are cramped, sometimes with multiple families sharing a single building. Rooms are dark, heated only by small fireplaces. Floors are uneven, walls drafty. Windows are small, covered with wooden shutters or oiled cloth. Privacy is minimal, and comfort is limited. Daily life begins at dawn. People wake early, often to the sound of animals, merchants, or street noise. Merchants set up their stalls, bakers start their ovens, and craftsmen open their workshops. Every person has a role, and the town depends on the labor and coordination of its inhabitants. Work is constant. Blacksmiths forge tools and weapons. Cobblers make shoes. Weavers prepare cloth, and bakers prepare bread. Merchants sell food, cloth, and goods. Farmers bring their produce to town markets. Life is repetitive, labor-intensive, and dictated by the needs of the town and surrounding countryside. Hygiene is minimal. Streets are narrow and dirty. Waste is often dumped into open gutters or streets. Bathing is infrequent, and washing facilities are rudimentary. Diseases like dysentery, typhoid, and plague spread easily. A small cut or infection can become fatal without treatment. Clean water is hard to find, and contamination is common. Food is simple, but sometimes scarce. Bread, porridge, cheese, and seasonal vegetables are staples. Meat is rare for most townsfolk, often reserved for wealthier residents or special occasions. Food preservation is limited. Salting, smoking, and drying help, but spoilage is common. Hunger is a persistent concern, particularly during poor harvests or harsh winters. The social hierarchy is strict. Wealthy merchants, guild leaders, and nobility have power and influence. Artisans, laborers, and the poor occupy the lower levels of society. Social mobility is limited, and life is often dictated by birth and wealth. Laws and authority are enforced by local lords or town officials. Punishments are harsh, and justice is uneven. Education is limited for most. Literacy is rare,
restricted to clergy, wealthy merchants, and some artisans. Most knowledge is practical, trade skills, farming, or household management. Children often begin work at a young age, learning by observing and assisting adults. Play exists but is brief, interwoven with labor. Religion dominates daily life. Towns are centered around churches, and bells mark time for prayers, work, and festivals. Religious observances dictate routines, influence behavior, and provide comfort in a harsh world. Superstitions, folklore, and local beliefs guide decisions, from planting crops to interpreting illness. Travel is slow and risky. Roads are often muddy or uneven. Bandits, wild animals, and poor weather make journeys dangerous. Most townspeople rarely leave the town, relying on local markets, neighbors, and visiting merchants for goods and information. News spreads slowly, often distorted by oral transmission. Clothing is practical and handmade. Wool and linen dominate, dyed in muted colors. Wealthier townsfolk can afford finer fabrics, while the poor wear coarse, durable garments. Clothing is repaired and reused extensively. Frequent washing is rare, and garments often carry dirt and odor from labor and weather. Noise and smell are constants. Streets are filled with the sounds of carts, animals, merchants, and townspeople. The stench of waste, smoke, and livestock is omnipresent. Indoor spaces are smoky and dim, with fires used for cooking and warmth. Comfort and quiet are luxuries few can afford. Medical care is rudimentary. Herbal remedies, prayers, and basic treatments are used for illness and injury. Doctors are rare and knowledge limited. Infection, disease, and injury are constant threats. Even minor ailments can become life-threatening without treatment. Life expectancy is low and infant mortality high. Children work early. Boys may apprentice with craftsmen or help in family businesses. Girls assist with household chores, cooking, and caring for siblings. Education is practical, focused on skills needed for survival and social roles. Childhood responsibilities are heavy, and play is brief and sporadic. Sanitation challenges affect daily life. Streets are muddy or filled with waste. Animals roam freely, adding noise and smell. Bathing is minimal. Clothing is seldom washed. Lice, fleas, and other pests are common. Hygiene is difficult, and illness spreads rapidly. Fire is a constant danger. Houses are made of wood and straw. Cooking over open flames is common. Accidents can destroy homes, businesses, and livelihoods. Fire regulations are minimal, and towns often suffer devastating blazes. Safety requires vigilance and preparation. Economic life is structured around markets and trade. Merchants sell goods, farmers bring produce, and craftsmen offer services. Coins are limited, barter common. Guilds regulate trade and training for craftsmen. Economic survival is a daily concern, requiring skill, effort, and social connections. Seasonal changes dominate routines. Winter brings cold, scarcity, and extra labor to store food and prepare shelter. Summer offers relative ease, but also risks: storms, floods, disease, and heat. Villagers and townsfolk alike must adapt constantly to changing conditions. Entertainment is modest. Storytelling, music, festivals, and games provide relief from labor. Wealthier townsfolk may attend theater, watch jousts, or enjoy feasts. The poor find amusement in community gatherings, song, and small games. Leisure is brief and often tied to survival or social obligations. Safety and law enforcement are inconsistent. Local authorities enforce rules, but often unevenly. Theft, violence, and disputes are common. Punishments are harsh, and justice is uneven. Food scarcity is real. Poor harvests, bad weather, or disease can reduce supplies. Preservation methods help, but hunger is a threat. Townspeople ration food carefully, and cooperation within families and communities is essential. Mental strain is constant. Labor, scarcity, disease, and hierarchy create stress. Faith, superstition, and community help sustain morale. Work, routine, and small joys provide structure in a harsh world. Water and sanitation are constant challenges. Wells and rivers provide drinking water, often contaminated. Waste disposal is minimal, and illness spreads easily. Bathing is rare, and life is shaped by physical labor and survival, not comfort or convenience. Nightfall brings relief and some rest. Work ends, streets quiet, and fires burn low. People gather for simple meals, prayer, and sleep. Night offers brief respite. Sleep is deep, but sometimes interrupted. Tomorrow brings more labor, more challenges, and the same rhythms. Imagine waking in such a town. The cold chill, the smell of animals and waste, the noise of preparation, all greet you. Daily labor awaits, fetching water, cleaning, repairing, preparing food, trading, and caring for family or livestock. Physical effort dominates, and modern convenience is absent. Despite hardships, townspeople endure. Routine, faith, community, and labor sustain them. Each day is predictable, yet challenging. Life is harsh, but structure and repetition provide a rhythm that people adapt to over time. Clothing, food, work, hygiene, and social hierarchy shape every action. Survival is constant, comfort rare. Tasks that seem simple today, washing, cooking, travel, require effort, planning, and time. Adaptation is essential. Children grow up quickly. Education is limited. Skills are learned by observation and participation. Play is brief. Responsibility begins early. Life is defined by necessity, duty, and survival. Weather remains a central factor. Storms damage property, spoil food, and endanger life. Winter is especially harsh. Cold, hunger, and illness are heightened. Villagers prepare in advance, storing food, firewood, and supplies. Adaptation is survival. Even leisure is practical. Storytelling teaches history and morals. Festivals reinforce social bonds. Music and games provide brief relief. Joy is intertwined with survival and duty. Medical care is limited. Herbs, poultices, and prayers help with illness and
Imagine a vast medieval countryside, dotted with small villages and scattered cottages. The land stretches into the horizon, fields divided by hedges and fences. Life here is simple but grueling, defined by the rhythm of seasons, work, and survival. Farmers formed the backbone of medieval society, providing food, labor, and resources for towns, castles, and communities. A farmer's day begins before sunrise. The first light of dawn is the signal to rise and start labor. Cows must be milked, chickens fed, and pigs checked. Tools are prepared, fields inspected, and livestock counted. Work is relentless, physically demanding, and dictated by necessity rather than choice. Farms are small and self-sufficient. Families grow grains, vegetables, and herbs. Livestock provides milk,
eggs, meat, and labor. Each crop and animal is vital for survival. Fertilizing, plowing, planting, and harvesting are seasonal tasks that demand careful timing and effort. Failure at any stage can threaten food security and income. The fields are the heart of the farmer's life. Plowing is back-breaking labor, often done with oxen or horses. Soil must be turned, weeds removed, and seeds planted carefully. Irrigation is limited. Farmers rely on rainfall. Weeding and tending crops occupy long hours. Seasonal change dictates the pace, intensity, and type of work. Harvest time is crucial. Crops are cut, gathered, and stored for winter. Grain is threshed, winnowed, and stored in barns or granaries. Vegetables are preserved by drying, pickling, or storing in cool cellars. Livestock is fattened for winter meat. The harvest determines whether a family will have enough to eat, and failure can mean famine. Tools are simple but essential. Wooden plows, sickles, hoes, and rakes form the basic equipment. Tools must be maintained carefully. A broken plow or dull sickle slows work and risks crop loss. Farmers rely on their hands, strength, and experience to accomplish tasks that today would require machinery. Housing is basic. Thatched cottages provide shelter but little comfort. Floors are dirt or simple wooden planks. Fireplaces offer heat, but smoke often fills the house. Furniture is minimal. A table, a few stools, and straw mattresses. Privacy is limited. Families live closely, sharing space and labor. Hygiene is minimal. Water must be fetched from wells or streams. Bathing is rare, often seasonal. Clothing is coarse and handmade, washed infrequently. Dirt, smoke, and animal presence are constant. Illness spreads easily, and infection is a daily risk. Survival requires adaptation to discomfort and perseverance. Meals are simple but vital. Bread, porridge, legumes, vegetables, and occasional meat form the diet. Preservation is essential. Salt, smoke, and drying extend shelf life. Hunger is a constant threat, especially in winter or after poor harvests. Cooking takes time, energy, and careful planning. Children contribute early. Boys learn plowing, herding, and tool use. Girls help with cooking, weaving, and household chores. Education is practical, focusing on skills needed for survival. Play exists but is brief and functional, often doubling as practice for adult tasks. Work is physically exhausting. Farmers spend hours bending, lifting, and tending crops and animals. Sunburn, blisters, and fatigue are common. Winter brings cold, frozen soil and extra labor to prepare storage and shelter. Adaptation, endurance, and resilience are crucial. Weather dominates life. Rain, frost, snow, and heat affect crops, animals, and labor. Storms can destroy fields and homes. Drought threatens survival. Farmers must constantly monitor, adapt, and prepare. Modern convenience is absent. Nature dictates pace, productivity, and comfort. Social hierarchy affects farmers. Many are serfs, bound to land owned by a lord. They owe labor, produce, or rent in exchange for protection. Freedom is limited. Lords enforce rules, collect dues, and punish transgressions. Life is dictated by authority, tradition, and survival. Religion shapes routines. Prayer and church attendance structure days. Religious festivals offer brief reprieve, celebration, and community bonding. Superstition and folk wisdom guide farming decisions. Planting, harvesting, and animal care often depend on omens or traditional knowledge. Economic pressures are constant. Farmers must produce enough for themselves, families, and obligations to their lord. Surplus is sold or traded in town markets. Poor harvests, theft, or disease can threaten income and survival. Financial stability is rare, and planning is essential. Animals are central to survival. Cows, pigs, sheep, goats, chickens, and horses provide food, labor, and resources. Feeding, cleaning, and caring for livestock is daily labor. Illness, injury, or death of animals has immediate consequences for survival. Farmers live closely with animals, sharing their space, smells, and routines. Sanitation challenges persist. Waste disposal is minimal. Animal pens, human waste, and food preparation areas are close. Illness spreads easily. Hygiene requires vigilance, but resources are limited. Adaptation and resilience are constant companions. Tools and maintenance dominate work. Repairing plows, mending fences, sharpening sickles, and building storage structures are daily tasks. Every tool and structure is essential. Neglect can result in disaster. Manual skill, attention, and endurance are required. Childbirth is dangerous. Midwives assist, but complications are frequent. Infant mortality is high. Families are large, ensuring some children survive. Raising children is labor-intensive. They contribute to household work early, learning skills necessary for survival. Illness and injury are constant threats. Farmers work with sharp tools, heavy loads, and animals. Even minor wounds can become infected. Disease spreads quickly. Medical care is primitive, relying on herbs, poultices, and prayers. Survival demands vigilance and endurance. Seasonal celebrations provide brief relief. Festivals, religious holidays, and communal gatherings offer food, music, and story. Work continues around these events, but temporary joy supports morale. Life remains harsh, repetitive, and physically demanding. Even leisure is functional. Storytelling, music, and games reinforce skills, teach morals, and build community. Joy is intertwined with work and survival. Recreation is brief, simple, and practical. Sleep is essential, but often uncomfortable. Dirt floors, straw mattresses, cold and noise challenge rest. Yet sleep restores energy for the demanding labor of the next day. Life is continuous, predictable, and harsh, yet rhythmic. Travel is limited. Roads are poor, muddy, or dangerous. Farmers rarely leave their villages. Market visits are infrequent and require planning. Communication is slow. Isolation is common, and communities are self-reliant. Economic and social pressures shape every decision. Labor, food, and survival dominate. Crop failure, illness, or injury can have severe consequences. Adaptation, skill, and community support determine endurance. Modern comforts are absent. Every action is essential. Mental strain is constant. Work, hunger, disease, and hierarchy contribute to stress. Faith, routine, and community provide support. Small achievements, successful planting, healthy livestock, or harvest surplus bring satisfaction and relief. Evening routines are modest. Fields empty, animals settle, fires burn low. Families gather for simple meals and prayer. Work is reviewed, plans made, and tools prepared for the next day. Night provides temporary respite. Imagine waking in this life. Cold, smell, labor, and scarcity greet you. Daily tasks dominate, tending fields, caring for animals, preparing food, and maintaining tools and buildings. Modern convenience is absent. Every action requires skill, strength, and patience. Fatigue accumulates, yet routine sustains survival. Despite hardships, farmers endure. Skills, knowledge, and community sustain them.
Imagine a towering medieval castle perched on a hill, overlooking the surrounding countryside. Its stone walls rise high, thick and imposing, designed to protect the lord, his family, and retainers from enemies. Inside, life is structured, hierarchical, and far from the simplicity of village or town life, yet still demanding and rigid. The castle is a complex world. Courtyards, halls, kitchens, stables, chapels, and dungeons form a labyrinth of stone and wood. Every space has a purpose, and daily life follows strict routines. Lords, ladies, soldiers, servants, and craftsmen coexist, each performing their roles to maintain the castle and its operations. Morning begins early, often before sunrise. Servants rise first, lighting fires, preparing food, and cleaning chambers. The lord and his family follow, attending to personal hygiene, dressing, and prayer. Rooms are drafty, floors cold, and comfort minimal. Privacy is limited. Servants and retainers are always nearby. Food preparation is constant. Kitchens are busy from dawn to dusk. Bread, pottage, meat, and vegetables are prepared in large quantities for residents and guests. Cooking is labor-intensive, involving chopping, boiling, roasting, and baking. Firewood must be chopped, fires maintained, and supplies monitored. Smoke fills the air, and heat is intense near hearths. Servants are the backbone of castle life. They clean, cook, tend animals, repair clothing, and assist in ceremonies. Work is physically demanding and repetitive. Mistakes are noticed, duties expected to be precise. Life is harsh, yet necessary for the smooth running of the castle. Soldiers maintain security. They train with weapons, patrol walls, and ensure gates are guarded. Life is disciplined, dangerous, and exhausting. Combat readiness is constant, even in peacetime. Armor is heavy, weapons unwieldy, and practice is repetitive. Soldiers often sleep lightly, ready for alarms or attack. Lords and ladies maintain authority and manage estates. Daily routines involve meetings, supervision, correspondence, and attending to matters of justice, taxation, and administration. Life is structured, formal, and demanding. Social obligations, ceremonies, and hospitality occupy much of the day. Even leisure is scheduled and often involves observing protocol or training. Hygiene is rudimentary. Bathing is infrequent, even among nobility. Fires provide warmth but dry air, contributing to discomfort. Clothing is heavy, layered, and sometimes uncomfortable. Cleanliness is secondary to practicality, protocol, and survival. Food varies by status. Lords enjoy more variety, meats, pastries, imported spices, and wine. Servants eat simpler fare, bread, porridge, vegetables, and occasional meat. Meals are formalized, feasts for the elite, simple gatherings for workers.
Preservation of food is vital, especially during winter or sieges. Children in the castle grow up with responsibilities. Sons of nobility receive training in combat, etiquette, and management. Daughters learn domestic skills, needlework, and social decorum. Servants' children assist in kitchens, stables, or workshops from a young age. Play exists, but is brief, structured, and often functional. Maintenance is constant. Stone walls, wooden beams, roofs, and floors require repair. Fires and cooking equipment must be maintained. Gates, drawbridges, and defenses need inspection. Craftsmen, blacksmiths, carpenters, masons, and tanners work steadily to ensure the castle remains functional. Labor is physically demanding and repetitive. Hygiene and sanitation are challenges. Latrines are primitive, often located in towers or along walls. Waste disposal requires vigilance. Smells, pests, and disease are constant companions. Water is fetched from wells or nearby sources, often requiring effort. Illness spreads easily, and medical care is limited. Religion shapes life in the castle. Daily prayers, chapel attendance, and observance of holy days are expected. Chaplains provide guidance, conduct ceremonies, and maintain records. Faith governs behavior, offers comfort, and reinforces authority. Superstition and ritual influence decisions, from construction to health and protection. Work is labor-intensive and continuous. Kitchens, stables, workshops, and gardens demand constant attention. Horses must be fed and groomed, livestock cared for, and gardens tended. Every task contributes to survival and function. Repetition dominates daily life. Sleep is necessary, but often interrupted. Guards patrol, fires need monitoring, and children awake early. Chambers are drafty, beds simple, and warmth limited. Rest is brief, but essential to face the demands of the next day. Fatigue is constant, yet life continues. Security is paramount. Castle walls, gates, and towers provide protection, but threats exist. Raiders, rival lords, or rebellion. Soldiers remain vigilant. Weapons are maintained. Drills and patrols are routine. Safety is never absolute, and preparedness is constant. Social hierarchy is strict. Nobility commands, soldiers protect, servants labor, and craftsmen maintain. Duties are prescribed, and deviations punished. Authority is clear, and everyone knows their role. Cooperation is necessary for survival. Seasonal changes dictate life. Winter brings cold, reduced daylight, and the need for stored food and fuel. Summer allows gardening, repairs, and travel. Rain, snow, or storms impact work, safety, and comfort. Nature is relentless, and adaptation is essential. Even leisure is structured. Lords hunt, play games, or train with weapons. Ladies practice needlework, music, or reading. Servants and soldiers have limited leisure, often brief gatherings, games, or storytelling. Joy is rare, functional, and tightly controlled. Hygiene is rudimentary. Bathing is infrequent, even among nobility. Fires provide warmth but dry air, contributing to discomfort. Clothing is heavy, layered, and sometimes uncomfortable. Cleanliness is secondary to practicality, protocol, and survival. Food varies by status. Lords enjoy more variety: meats, pastries, imported spices, and wine. Servants eat simpler fare: bread, porridge, vegetables, and occasional meat. Meals are formalized: feasts for the elite, simple gatherings for workers. Preservation of food is vital, especially during winter or sieges. Children in the castle grow up with responsibilities. Sons of nobility receive training in combat, etiquette, and management. Daughters learn domestic skills, needlework, and social decorum. Servants' children assist in kitchens, stables, or workshops from a young age. Play exists, but is brief, structured, and often functional. Maintenance is constant. Stone walls, wooden beams, roofs, and floors require repair. Fires and cooking equipment must be maintained. Gates, drawbridges, and defenses need inspection. Craftsmen, blacksmiths, carpenters, masons, and tanners work steadily to ensure the castle remains functional. Labor is physically demanding and repetitive. Hygiene and sanitation are challenges. Latrines are primitive, often located in towers or along walls. Waste disposal requires vigilance. Smells, pests, and disease are constant companions. Water is fetched from wells or nearby sources, often requiring effort. Illness spreads easily, and medical care is limited. Religion shapes life in the castle. Daily prayers, chapel attendance, and observance of holy days are expected. Chaplains provide guidance, conduct ceremonies, and maintain records. Faith governs behavior, offers comfort, and reinforces authority. Superstition and ritual influence decisions, from construction to health and protection. Work is labor-intensive and continuous. Kitchens, stables, workshops, and gardens demand constant attention. Horses must be fed and groomed, livestock cared for, and gardens tended. Every task contributes to survival and function. Repetition dominates daily life. Sleep is necessary, but often interrupted. Guards patrol. Fires need monitoring, and children awake early. Chambers are drafty, beds simple, and warmth limited. Rest is brief, but essential to face the demands of the next day. Fatigue is constant, yet life continues. Security is paramount. Castle walls, gates, and towers provide protection, but threats exist. Raiders, rival lords, or rebellion. Soldiers remain vigilant. Weapons are maintained. Drills and patrols are routine. Safety is never absolute, and preparedness is constant. Social hierarchy is strict. Nobility commands, soldiers protect, servants labor, and craftsmen maintain. Duties are.
Imagine arriving at a medieval market town. Narrow, cobbled streets wind between half-timbered houses. The air is thick with smoke, the scent of bread baking, animals, and open gutters. Merchants call out their goods, children run through alleys, and carts creak over uneven cobblestones. Life moves slowly, yet every sound, smell, and sight tells the story of labor, trade, and routine. Market towns are small but bustling. They exist to connect rural farmers with townspeople, craftsmen, and merchants. Goods arrive slowly from surrounding villages, carried by carts or on foot. Merchants sell grain, vegetables, textiles, pottery, and other necessities. Life is repetitive, predictable, and structured around trade, social hierarchy, and survival. Daily life begins at dawn. Farmers arrive with produce, bakers prepare bread, craftsmen open workshops, and merchants set up stalls. Early morning is cold and damp. Work is necessary, labor-intensive, and often unpleasant. Each day repeats the previous, yet each moment is essential to the town's survival. Merchants are the heartbeat of the market. They display their goods on tables, call out to potential buyers, and carefully count coins for each transaction. Money is scarce, trade is slow,
and bargaining is constant. Merchants must balance profits with the risk of unsold goods or spoiled produce. Their work is repetitive, meticulous, and demanding. Craftsmen operate within the town. Blacksmiths, weavers, potters, and carpenters maintain workshops. Blacksmiths hammer tools and horseshoes in noisy, smoky spaces. Weavers operate looms, threading and dyeing cloth in muted colors. Potters mold clay into functional vessels, carefully firing them in kilns. Carpenters construct and repair furniture, carts, and structures. Labor is repetitive, essential, and physically demanding. Hygiene is minimal. Streets are narrow, filled with waste, animals, and mud. Bathing is rare, and water is fetched from wells or nearby streams. Clothing is coarse and washed infrequently. Illness spreads easily, and injury or infection is a daily risk. Survival requires adaptation to discomfort, patience, and vigilance. Food is simple but necessary. Bread, porridge, legumes, and vegetables are staples. Meat is rare for most townsfolk, reserved for festivals or the wealthy. Preservation is vital. Salting, smoking, and drying extend shelf life. Hunger is a constant concern, particularly during poor harvests or bad weather. Children contribute early. Boys may assist in shops, apprenticing with craftsmen or helping families sell produce. Girls assist in cooking, cleaning, or textile work. Education is practical, focused on survival skills. Play is brief and functional, often doubling as practice for adult tasks. Social hierarchy governs life. Wealthy merchants and guild leaders hold authority and influence. Laborers, artisans, and poor townspeople occupy lower ranks. Authority is enforced by town officials or local lords. Laws are strict, punishments harsh, and social mobility limited. Cooperation is necessary to maintain peace, trade, and survival. Religion shapes routines. Church bells mark time for prayer, work, and festivals. Religious observances provide structure, community, and comfort. Superstition and local belief influence decisions. Planting, trading, and travel often depend on omens or folk wisdom. Work is exhausting. Farmers, merchants, and craftsmen labor long hours. Heat, smoke, and physical strain are constants. Mistakes can ruin a day's work. Repetition dominates life. Planting, harvesting, selling, repairing, and crafting cycle continuously. Modern convenience is absent. Survival depends on effort and endurance. Seasonal change dictates life. Spring brings planting and renewal. Summer requires tending crops and maintaining goods. Autumn is for harvest, trade, and preparation for winter. Winter brings cold, limited daylight, and the need for stored food and fuel. Weather affects work, trade, and safety. Housing is cramped. Half-timbered homes are small, with narrow rooms and drafty walls. Families share space. Furniture is minimal, a table, stools, and straw mattresses. Fires provide warmth, but smoke fills rooms. Comfort is scarce. Privacy is almost non-existent. Even leisure is modest. Festivals, religious holidays, and small social gatherings offer brief respite. Music, dancing, storytelling, and games reinforce community bonds. Joy is limited and functional, providing morale to sustain harsh labor. Economic pressure is constant. Merchants risk loss if goods spoil or fail to sell. Craftsmen rely on orders from townsfolk or visiting traders. Farmers must produce sufficient surplus to trade. Every coin, every product, and every transaction matters. Failure can mean scarcity, hunger, or debt. Health risks are ever present. Crowded streets, poor sanitation, and shared living spaces spread illness. Injuries from tools, animals, or accidents are common. Medical care is limited to herbs, poultices, and prayers. Even minor ailments can be life-threatening. Security is necessary. Bandits, thieves, or rival towns pose threats. Guards patrol streets, and merchants watch their stalls. Cooperation and vigilance are essential. Safety is never guaranteed, and preparation is constant. Nightfall brings temporary calm. Fires dim, streets empty, and animals rest. Townsfolk gather for simple meals, prayer, or conversation. Sleep is essential, though comfort is minimal. Drafty rooms, shared space, and cold nights challenge rest. Travel is slow and risky. Roads are uneven, muddy, and poorly maintained. Travelers face bandits, wild animals, and weather hazards. Most townsfolk rarely leave. Trade, news, and communication are slow. Isolation is common, requiring self-reliance and careful planning. Childhood is functional. Apprenticeships and chores dominate education. Skills are learned by observation, repetition, and labor. Play exists briefly, but often prepares children for adult responsibilities. Responsibility begins early. Survival skills are taught from the first years of life. Weather shapes every aspect of life. Rain affects roads, markets, and farming. Frost can damage crops. Storms threaten buildings, goods, and safety. Summer offers relative ease, but storms, heat, or pests still present challenges. Adaptation to nature is essential for survival. Hygiene challenges persist. Streets are dirty, waste accumulates, and animals roam freely. Washing is infrequent. Clothing carries dirt, sweat, and odor. Adaptation and resilience are daily necessities. Evening routines are brief. Markets close, workshops tidy, animals are fed, and families gather for small meals. Night provides rest, but work resumes early. The rhythm of life is relentless, yet predictable, repetitive, yet necessary. Imagine the peaceful market town at night. Silent streets, dark homes, flickering fires, and sleeping townsfolk. Life in medieval market towns is harsh, repetitive, and laborious, yet rhythmic, structured, and enduring. Human endurance, patience, and adaptation define existence in this slow, predictable world.
Imagine a small medieval village tucked between rolling hills and farmland. Smoke rises from thatched roofs, animals stir in pens, and the scent of bread baking mixes with earth and livestock. The village is quiet yet alive, shaped by routine, labor, and survival. Life moves slowly, and each day is dictated by necessity, rhythm, and nature. Morning begins before sunrise. Farmers rise to tend animals, milk cows, collect eggs, and check on pigs. Firewood is gathered, water fetched from wells or nearby streams. Children awake to help in small chores or prepare for apprenticeship. Everyone has a role, and routine ensures the village functions. Homes are simple and cramped. Most cottages have 1 or 2 rooms, dirt floors or wooden planks, small windows with shutters, and minimal furniture characterize these houses. Privacy is rare and comfort is limited. Fires provide warmth and cooking facilities, but produce smoke and drafty conditions. Families live close together, sharing space, labor, and resources. Daily labor dominates. Farmers tend fields, plowing, sowing, weeding, and harvesting. Work is physically exhausting, often performed in poor weather. Tools are simple, wooden plows, sickles, hoes, but essential. Failure to maintain crops can threaten the family's survival. Livestock requires constant attention, feeding, cleaning, and tending to illness or injury. Children contribute early. Boys learn farming, herding, and trade skills. Girls assist with cooking, cleaning, and household chores. Play exists but is brief and functional, often preparing children for adult responsibilities. Education is practical, focused on survival rather than reading or writing. Food is simple and vital. Bread, porridge, legumes, vegetables, and occasional meat are staples. Preservation is critical. Salting, drying, or smoking ensures food lasts through winter. Scarcity is common. Hunger is a constant risk, particularly after poor harvests, storms, or livestock loss. Every meal requires effort to secure, prepare, and maintain. Hygiene is minimal. Bathing is infrequent, often seasonal. Clothes are coarse and washed rarely. Streets are narrow, muddy, and filled with waste and animals. Disease spreads easily. Illness, injury, and infection are constant threats. Survival demands vigilance, adaptation, and resilience. The village social structure is strict. Lords or local authorities dictate obligations and rights. Many villagers are serfs, bound to the land and required to provide labor, produce, or payments. Social mobility is rare, and status is determined largely by birth and occupation. Hierarchy governs interaction, work, and community life. Religion shapes every day. Church bells mark time, signal prayer, and announce festivals. Chaplains or priests provide guidance, administer rites, and advise on moral and practical matters. Superstitions influence farming, health, and social decisions. Rituals and observances provide structure and comfort amid harsh conditions. Work is relentless and repetitive. Farmers plow, sow, harvest, and maintain buildings. Craftsmen, blacksmiths, weavers, carpenters, and potters support the village with essential goods. Blacksmiths hammer tools, nails, and horseshoes. Weavers thread looms for cloth and clothing. Potters mold clay for dishes, storage, and cooking. Carpenters repair buildings, carts, and furniture. Labor requires strength, skill, and patience. Seasonal changes dictate routine. Spring is for planting and preparing land. Summer is for tending crops and maintaining livestock. Autumn is for harvest and storage. Winter is harsh, cold, darkness, scarcity, and extra labor to preserve food and fuel. Nature dominates life, and adaptation is constant. Market days are highlights, but still structured and slow. Merchants bring goods from nearby towns, farmers trade surplus crops or eggs, and villagers acquire tools, cloth, or salt. Trade requires patience, negotiation, and calculation. Profits are modest, and mistakes can threaten survival.
Markets are social as well as economic spaces, reinforcing community and hierarchy. Even leisure is brief and practical. Storytelling, music, and festivals provide small relief from labor. Games, songs, and dancing teach social norms, prepare children for adult roles, or celebrate seasonal milestones. Joy is limited, functional, and often intertwined with survival. Housing and workshops are drafty, smoky, and dim. Fires provide warmth and cooking facilities, but fill rooms with smoke. Floors are cold or muddy. Beds are simple straw or wood constructions. Comfort is minimal. Night brings only partial relief. Wind, cold, animals, and occasional threats disturb sleep. Security is a concern. Bandits, wild animals, and occasional feuds pose threats. Guards are rare. Vigilance is constant. Tools, livestock, and food must be monitored. Safety is never guaranteed. Survival depends on preparation, caution, and cooperation with neighbors. Children grow up quickly. Apprenticeships and chores dominate education. Boys learn craft, farming, and trade skills. Girls assist with cooking, cleaning, and household chores. Play exists but is brief and functional, often preparing children for adult responsibilities. Education is practical, focused on survival rather than reading or writing. Food is simple and vital. Bread, porridge, legumes, vegetables, and occasional meat are staples. Preservation is critical. Salting, drying, or smoking ensures food lasts through winter. Scarcity is common. Hunger is a constant risk, particularly after poor harvests, storms, or livestock loss. Every meal requires effort to secure, prepare, and maintain. Hygiene is minimal. Bathing is infrequent, often seasonal. Clothes are coarse and washed rarely. Streets are narrow, muddy, and filled with waste and animals. Disease spreads easily. Illness, injury, and infection are constant threats. Survival demands vigilance, adaptation, and resilience. The village social structure is strict. Lords or local authorities dictate obligations and rights. Many villagers are serfs, bound to the land and required to provide labor, produce, or payments. Social mobility is rare, and status is determined largely by birth and occupation. Hierarchy governs interaction, work, and community life. Religion shapes every day. Church bells mark time, signal prayer, and announce festivals. Chaplains or priests provide guidance, administer rites, and advise on moral and practical matters. Superstitions influence farming, health, and social decisions. Rituals and observances provide structure and comfort amid harsh conditions. Work is relentless and repetitive. Farmers plow, sow, harvest, and maintain buildings. Craftsmen, blacksmiths, weavers, carpenters, and potters support the village with essential goods. Blacksmiths hammer tools, nails, and horseshoes. Weavers thread looms for cloth and clothing. Potters mold clay for dishes, storage, and cooking. Carpenters repair buildings, carts, and furniture. Labor requires strength, skill, and patience. Seasonal changes dictate routine. Spring is for planting and preparing land. Summer is for tending crops and maintaining livestock. Autumn is for harvest and storage. Winter is harsh, cold, darkness, scarcity, and extra labor to preserve food and fuel. Nature dominates life, and adaptation is constant. Market days are highlights, but still structured and slow.
Merchants bring goods from nearby towns, farmers trade surplus crops or eggs, and villagers acquire tools, cloth, or salt. Trade requires patience, negotiation, and calculation. Profits are modest, and mistakes can threaten survival. Markets are social as well as economic spaces, reinforcing community and hierarchy. Even leisure is brief and practical. Storytelling, music, and festivals provide small relief from labor. Games, songs, and dancing teach social norms, prepare children for adult roles, or celebrate seasonal milestones. Joy is limited, functional, and often intertwined with survival. Housing and workshops are drafty, smoky, and dim. Fires provide warmth and cooking facilities, but fill rooms with smoke. Floors are cold or muddy. Beds are simple straw or wood constructions. Comfort is minimal. Night brings only partial relief, wind, cold,